Starting with a smile. Hook. They say, a smile can change an entire day at work. Think about that for a moment. Not a new project, not a big promotion, not even a raise. Just a smile. Something so small, yet so powerful. Main storytelling and teaching. I once heard a story about a young woman working at a busy corporate office. Every morning, as she walked in, she made it a habit to greet the security guard, the receptionist, and even her colleagues with a simple smile. Nothing exaggerated, nothing forced, just genuine warmth. At first, people barely noticed. Everyone was too consumed by their deadlines, their emails, their morning coffee rituals. But slowly, something started to shift. The guard, who used to stand stiff and serious, began to greet her back with a little nod and grin. The receptionist started welcoming her more brightly. And before long, her colleagues found themselves smiling too, without even realizing it. The atmosphere in the office began to change. Meetings felt lighter. Conversations became kinder. People started helping each other more willingly. And the amazing thing? She didn't give a motivational speech. She didn't start a campaign. She didn't do anything extraordinary. She just smiled. Reflection and depth. Now, let me ask you, how often do you bring that energy into your workplace? Do you walk in carrying yesterday's stress? Or do you walk in as someone who can set the tone for the day? Because here's the truth. In Buddhism, a smile isn't just a gesture, it's a seed of compassion. It's a small act of generosity, a way of saying, I see you. I wish you well. That's why the Buddha himself is so often depicted smiling, a soft, gentle smile that carries peace and acceptance. It's not superficial. It's not fake. It's the natural expression of a heart that has touched stillness. And we don't need to be enlightened to practice that. Every one of us can offer a smile, even on days when life feels heavy. Sometimes, that's exactly when it matters most. Personal insight or perspective. I remember when I worked in a stressful environment, deadlines piling up, everyone moving fast. One colleague always had this calm, steady smile. It wasn't a big grin, it was subtle, but it carried something grounding. Whenever I talked to them, even if it was about a difficult project, I felt calmer. And I realized, their smile wasn't about denying stress. It was about choosing not to spread it. Isn't that powerful? In a world where negativity spreads so quickly, complaints, gossip, frustration, a smile can be like a candle in a dark room. It doesn't erase the darkness, but it creates enough light for people to see more clearly. Philosophical expansion. Here's another way to think about it. At work, we often believe influence comes from titles or authority. But influence also comes from presence. Who you are, how you show up, your energy, that shapes the space around you. A smile may look small, but it's a declaration. I choose kindness over tension. I choose openness over walls. I choose connection over isolation. And when people feel that from you, they begin to mirror it back. That's the law of resonance. The energy you put out is the energy you receive. And spiritually, this is also karma in action. Every smile is like planting a seed. Maybe it doesn't bloom immediately, but over time, it softens hearts, builds trust, and creates harmony. Questions to engage the viewer. So, here's my question for you. Who in your workplace could use your smile today? Is it the coworker who's always overwhelmed, the one who never gets recognized, or maybe the one who seems the hardest to reach? What if your smile was the first step in changing not just their day, but the whole culture around you? Closing and transition to next part. Tomorrow, when you walk into your office, try this. Offer a genuine smile to at least one person you usually overlook. Watch what happens, not just in them, but in you. You might discover that this tiny act carries more power than you ever imagined. Because in the end, a smile isn't just for others. It heals you, too. It softens your own stress, reminds you of your own capacity for kindness, and plants peace in your own heart. So let's begin there. Start with a smile. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore how listening, something as simple as opening your ears and your heart, can also be a way of creating blessings in the workplace. Stay with me, because each small step builds into something much greater. Together, we are learning how to transform work from just a place of earning into a place of growing, healing, and giving. Listening with an open heart. Hook. Did you know? Your ears can create blessings too. We often think of kindness as something we do, giving, helping, smiling. But one of the most powerful acts of compassion is something much quieter. It's the way we listen. Storytelling and illustration. There was a man in a corporate team who was always misunderstood. He wasn't the loudest. He didn't have the charm that makes people instantly likable. In meetings, whenever he spoke, others interrupted or brushed him aside. Over time, he withdrew. He stopped contributing, and soon people labeled him as unmotivated or difficult. But one colleague chose a different approach. Instead of judging him, she sat down with him during lunch one day and simply listened. She didn't rush to fix his problems. She didn't try to prove him wrong. She just let him speak. For the first time in months, he felt heard. Slowly, he opened up about the pressure he was under, the projects he struggled with, and even his fears of being excluded. Something shifted. With just a few conversations, he regained confidence. He started sharing his ideas again, and people noticed the value he brought. The misunderstanding that once weighed heavy on him dissolved, all because someone gave him the gift of listening. Deeper reflection. Listening seems so simple, doesn't it? Yet how often do we truly do it? Most of the time, when someone talks, our mind is already racing with what we'll say next. Or worse, we are silently judging them, comparing their story to our own. But when you strip all of that away, when you listen without an agenda, something remarkable happens. People heal. They feel seen. They feel valued. And in the workplace, that can be life-changing. Because behind every colleague you see rushing to meet a deadline, behind every sharp email or tense expression, there is a human being longing to be understood. Buddhist teaching connection. In Buddhism, listening is considered an act of compassion. Thich Nhat, the Vietnamese Zen master, often spoke about deep listening, listening not to reply, but to relieve suffering. He taught that when we listen with openness, we don't just hear words, we hear the pain, the joy, the hope underneath those words. And that's the practice of metta, loving kindness, in action. It's how we transform workplaces from spaces of competition into spaces of connection. A single act of deep listening can dissolve resentment, rebuild trust, and open doors where walls once stood. Personal insight. I remember a time when a colleague came to me, clearly upset about something that had happened in a meeting. My instinct was to defend myself, to explain my side. But for some reason, I chose to stay quiet and just let them talk. At first, it was hard. My mind kept forming rebuttals. But then, as they continued, I realized what they needed wasn't my explanation. They needed space to release what was inside. By the end, they looked lighter, calmer. They even said, "Thank you for hearing me out." And I hadn't done anything except listen. It struck me then, listening is not passive. It's deeply active. It's holding a safe space for another person's humanity. Philosophical expansion. Think about this. When was the last time you felt truly listened to? Can you recall the relief, the sense of ease it brought you? Now imagine giving that same gift to someone else. In many offices, problems don't come from the workload alone. They come from the lack of understanding. Miscommunications pile up. Assumptions harden into resentments. But with listening, we break that cycle. We remind each other that beneath our roles, manager, employee, co-worker, we are all human beings with fragile hearts. And here's the paradox. Listening often requires us to be silent. Yet in that silence, we speak the loudest. We say, "You matter. I'm here for you. I care." Questions for the viewer. So let me ask you, how do you listen? Do you listen to reply, or do you listen to understand? Who in your workplace right now might be carrying unspoken stress, waiting for someone, anyone, to give them space to share? Could that person be the one sitting right across from you, hidden behind a polite smile? Closing and transition. Sometimes, 1,000 words of advice can't heal what one moment of deep listening can. Silence, when it's full of presence, is more powerful than speech. So tomorrow, try this experiment. The next time a colleague shares something with you, resist the urge to interrupt. Resist the urge to fix. Just listen, fully, openly, with compassion. See what unfolds. Because listening is not the end of the journey, it's the beginning. But listening alone is not enough. Once we've opened our ears and our hearts, the next step is to share. To offer what we know, what we have, in a way that uplifts others. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. How generosity and sharing, not keeping everything to yourself, creates blessings not just for others, but for your own life too. Stay with me. The journey of transforming work into a path of growth has only just begun. Sharing instead of keeping to yourself. Hook. They say, what you keep to yourself will fade, but what you share will last forever. It's true. Knowledge, wisdom, even small experiences, they grow only when they're passed on. And in the workplace, this principle becomes even more powerful. Storytelling and illustration. Let me tell you about two employees I once heard of. The first was talented, skilled, and sharp. He discovered shortcuts in his work, little tricks that made tasks faster and more efficient. But he kept them to himself. Why? Because he thought that knowledge was his advantage, the secret that kept him one step ahead of his colleagues. For a while, it worked. He looked good in front of his boss, got praised for his speed, and felt secure in his position. But over time, people began to notice something. He wasn't very collaborative. He wasn't a team player. And slowly, trust eroded. His colleagues stopped approaching him. Even when he needed help, people hesitated. Eventually, he became isolated, respected for his skill but not truly valued for his presence. Then there was another colleague. She didn't just do her work, she shared how she did it. When she found a tool that saved time, she showed the whole team. When she discovered a strategy that solved a problem, she explained it patiently to others. People loved working with her because she lifted everyone up. And do you know what happened? She became indispensable, not because she held knowledge tightly, but because she spread it generously. The team grew stronger. She grew stronger. And she built a network of support that always had her back. Deeper reflection. Now, which story feels closer to you? Do you tend to guard your knowledge like treasure, or do you see it as a gift meant to be shared? It's worth reflecting on, because the truth is, what you hoard will eventually slip away. Knowledge hidden is like water in a sealed jar. It grows stale. But when you pour it into the stream of life, it flows, nourishes others, and circles back to you in unexpected ways. Buddhist teaching connection. In Buddhism, there's a practice called DNA Pramit, the perfection of generosity. And one of the highest forms of generosity is not money or material things, but the sharing of wisdom, insight, and knowledge. This is called Dharma giving, the offering of understanding. When you share what you know, you're not just helping someone with their task. You're planting seeds of growth, confidence, and capability in them. And those seeds bear fruit, not just for them, but for you too, because you're creating an environment where growth becomes collective, not competitive. Personal insight. I remember when I was new in a job, struggling with a system that seemed impossibly complex. I asked a senior colleague for help, expecting a quick answer. Instead, he sat down with me and walked me through not only the solution but also the reasoning behind it. He didn't have to. He could have brushed me off. But he took the time to teach. That day, I felt something shift. Not only did I learn a new skill, but I also felt valued. I felt like I belonged. And from that moment, I trusted him deeply. On the flip side, I've also seen people who guard their knowledge out of fear of losing their edge, fear of being replaced. But ironically, that fear creates the very isolation they're trying to avoid. Because in the end, people don't remember you for what you keep. They remember you for what you give. Philosophical expansion. Think about it. In history, the teachers we revere, the leaders we honor, they weren't the ones who kept wisdom locked away. They were the ones who gave it freely. From scientists to spiritual leaders, from innovators to mentors, their legacy didn't come from secrecy. It came from sharing. And in the workplace, your legacy is the same. 10 years from now, people may not remember the exact reports you filed or the projects you finished, but they will remember how you made them feel. Did you lift them up? Did you help them grow? Did you share your light so they could shine too? Sharing doesn't mean you lose. In fact, you expand. Just as a candle doesn't lose its flame by lighting another candle, your knowledge doesn't diminish when you share it. It multiplies. Questions for the viewer. So let me ask you, what are you holding on to right now that could help someone else? A lesson from a mistake you made? A trick that saves time? An insight from your experience? What would happen if, instead of keeping it tucked away, you offered it openly? How would that change your relationships at work? And maybe more importantly, how would it change you? Closing and transition. When you give, you also receive. You receive trust, respect, connection, and sometimes unexpected blessings. But there's one condition: giving must come from the right place. Not to show off, not to manipulate, but from a pure heart that genuinely wishes others well. Because generosity without purity can feel like control, but generosity with sincerity becomes love in action. So as we move forward, remember this: the things you share will live on long after the things you keep have been forgotten. And in the next part, we'll explore what it means to work with a pure heart. Because giving is powerful, but giving with purity is what turns action into blessing. Stay with me, because this journey is about more than just doing well at work. It's about turning work itself into a path of wisdom, compassion, and joy. Working with a pure heart. Hook. Work isn't just about earning a paycheck, it's about planting blessings. That might sound unusual, right? Most of us grew up believing that work is simply the thing we do to survive, to pay bills, to secure comfort. But what if I told you that the way we approach our work, not the title, not the salary, but the heart behind it, has the power to shape not just our career, but our inner peace? The two ways of working. Let's imagine two different employees. The first one works with one goal: recognition. Every task is a stepping stone toward applause, promotion, or praise. And yes, they often succeed. But deep down, they're always exhausted. Why? Because recognition is a hungry master. It never says, enough. The more you achieve, the more it demands. Now, think about another person. They show up at work each day not to chase approval, but to contribute. Their focus isn't, how can I look good? But, how can I make this better for everyone? They still work hard, but there's a lightness about them. They don't burn out as easily, because their fuel isn't ego, it's purpose. So let me ask you, which of these two workers do you think sleeps better at night? Which one do you think people truly respect? A story from the workplace. I once heard about a nurse in a busy hospital. Her shifts were long, her pay wasn't glamorous, and yet, she showed up every day with the same calm energy. One time, a colleague asked her, "How do you keep this attitude? Don't you ever feel drained?" She smiled and said, "If I only worked for the paycheck, I'd have quit years ago. I work for the lives behind the paycheck. Every patient I comfort, every wound I tend, it matters." That nurse wasn't just doing a job. She was practicing what, in Buddhist teaching, is called right livelihood, working with a heart that seeks to reduce harm and spread kindness. Her joy didn't come from accolades. It came from knowing her work was aligned with something deeper. Buddhist teaching connection. In Buddhism, there's this idea of Chan MNG, right livelihood. It's part of the Noble Eightfold Path. And it doesn't just mean don't harm others with your job. It also means do your work with a pure heart, free from greed, pride, or ill will. When your motivation is clean, your actions become clean. And clean actions create good karma, what we might call positive ripple effects. It's not mystical. It's simply the reality that when you work with sincerity, you build trust. When you act with integrity, you attract peace. Personal reflection. I remember a time early in my career when I was obsessed with achievements. I'd measure my worth by the size of projects I handled or the compliments I received. And yes, there were moments of excitement, but the happiness always faded quickly. It was like pouring water into a sieve. It never stayed. Later, I had a shift. Instead of asking, how can I prove myself? I started asking, how can I serve? It sounds small, but the change was huge. Suddenly, even simple tasks felt lighter. I wasn't just checking boxes, I was contributing to something larger than myself. And ironically, that's when recognition came naturally. The truth is, when you stop chasing, you often receive more than you expected. Philosophical expansion. Let's step back. Why does working with a pure heart matter so much? Because our work consumes a huge portion of our lives. Think about it. 40 hours a week, for decades. If those hours are fueled by stress, competition, and ego, then a massive chunk of our life energy is spent in suffering. But if those same hours are guided by clarity, kindness, and sincerity, then our work itself becomes a practice of peace. Work isn't separate from life, it is life. And if we bring a pure heart into it, we turn labor into service, deadlines into opportunities, and colleagues into companions on the path. Questions for the viewer. So here's a question for you. Why do you work? Is it just for the paycheck? The title? The recognition? Or is there a deeper reason? Something about contributing, supporting, or creating? What would shift if, tomorrow morning, you walked into your workplace and thought, I'm here to bring value, not just to myself, but to the whole? Would that lighten your load? Would that change how you handle conflict, or how you treat those around you? Practical example. Even small shifts matter. Imagine you're on a team project. You could say, I want my part to shine so I look good. Or you could say, I want the project to succeed, even if no one notices my pace. The first mindset drains you, because it's fragile. What if people don't notice? The second mindset frees you, because your joy doesn't depend on others' applause. It comes from the simple act of giving your best. Closing and transition. So yes, work isn't just about paying the bills. It's about planting seeds. Every email you send, every meeting you join, every small action, if done with a pure heart, becomes a blessing, not just for others, but for you. When your heart is clean, your work feels lighter. Even difficult tasks don't weigh you down as much, because they're carried by sincerity, not ego. And here's something to reflect on. What helps us keep that pure heart alive? One of the most powerful answers is humility. Because humility reminds us that we don't need to be the star of the show to make a difference. It's the quiet strength that keeps the heart pure. And that, humility as the seed of purity, is exactly what we'll explore in the next part. So stay with me. Because this journey isn't just about surviving work. It's about transforming work into a path of wisdom, compassion, and joy. Humility in success. Hook. The sun never brags about its light, yet everyone feels its warmth. Isn't that beautiful? Think about it. Something as powerful and life-giving as the sun doesn't need to advertise itself. It simply shines. And that, my friends, is the quiet strength of humility. The temptation of success. Now, let's be honest. Success is intoxicating. Maybe you land that promotion you've been chasing. Or your business finally takes off. Or people start recognizing your talents. In those moments, it's so easy to let pride sneak in. You start thinking, I earned this. I'm better. I deserve more respect than others. At first, it feels empowering. But here's the catch. Pride is like sugar. It gives you a quick high, but over time, it rots the very foundation of your relationships. Have you ever worked with someone who was clearly talented but couldn't stop reminding everyone of it? They might be admired from afar, but up close, people keep their distance. Pride builds walls. The power of humility. Now imagine the opposite. Someone accomplished, respected, even powerful, yet humble. They don't need to broadcast their success because their presence already speaks volumes. I once knew a manager who had every reason to brag. She had degrees from top schools, led projects that saved the company millions, and was well loved by executives. But if you met her, you'd never know unless someone else told you. She was too busy listening, encouraging, and uplifting her team. And here's the paradox. Because she didn't brag, people admired her even more. Her humility created space for others to shine, and that made her light even brighter. A story to illustrate. Let me share a short story I came across. A young monk once asked his master, "Why should I be humble when I've worked so hard to achieve wisdom? Shouldn't I be proud?" The master took him to a bamboo grove and said, "Look at these stalks. The ones that grow tallest always bend low. The ones that stay stiff and upright are the shortest." The lesson was clear. True greatness naturally bows down. And isn't that true in life? The people we respect most aren't the ones who constantly declare their greatness. They're the ones whose quiet strength makes us feel safe, inspired, and valued. The Buddhist perspective. In Buddhist teachings, humility is a medicine for the ego. It dissolves arrogance and self-importance, what we call NGAMN. The ego constantly whispers, I, me, mine. And when we listen to it, we suffer, because the ego is never satisfied. But humility is different. It reminds us that we are part of something bigger, that our successes aren't just ours, they're the result of countless conditions, teachers who guided us, co-workers who supported us, even the simple luck of being born in the right place and time. When we recognize this, humility isn't about thinking less of ourselves. It's about thinking of ourselves less. Personal reflection. I'll be honest, there was a time when I struggled with this. Early in my career, every compliment felt like fuel. I wanted more, and when I didn't get it, I felt invisible. But the funny thing is, the more I tried to prove myself, the less connected I felt to people around me. Then I met a mentor who flipped my perspective. He was wildly successful, books published, businesses thriving, everyone respected him. Yet, he always acted as if he was still learning. He asked questions. He gave credit away freely. And people loved being around him. That's when it hit me. Humility doesn't make you smaller. It actually makes you larger, because it makes room for others in your success story. A question for you. So let me ask, when was the last time you succeeded at something big? Did you quietly celebrate and share gratitude? Or did you feel the urge to make sure everyone knew about it? And here's the deeper question. What kind of impact do you want your success to have? Do you want it to create distance or closeness? The ripple effect of humility. Humility has a ripple effect. When a leader is humble, the whole team feels safe to contribute. When a colleague is humble, collaboration becomes easier. When a friend is humble, the bond deepens. Humility doesn't erase your accomplishments. It multiplies their value, because others can share in them. It's like the sun again. It doesn't say, "Look at me, I'm shining." It just shines, and because of that, plants grow, life flourishes, and everyone benefits. Practical takeaway. So how can we practice humility in success? Give credit generously. Acknowledge the people who helped you along the way. Stay curious. No matter how much you know, approach life as if you're still learning. Let your work speak. You don't have to announce your worth. Let your actions reveal it. When we live like this, humility isn't weakness. It's quiet power. Closing and transition. Humility is magnetic. It draws people in. It makes them want to trust you, support you, and walk alongside you. And here's something even deeper. Humility opens the door to gratitude. Because once you stop clinging to pride, you start noticing all the blessings that made your success possible. And gratitude, my friends, is another powerful way of planting blessings in your life. That's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. How gratitude turns even ordinary moments into extraordinary gifts. So remember, shine like the sun. Quietly, humbly, but in a way that everyone feels your light. Gratitude for colleagues. Hook. Every colleague is a teacher, whether they bring comfort or discomfort. That's a strange thought, isn't it? Most of us only feel grateful for the coworkers who make life easier, the ones who lend a hand, share knowledge, or offer kindness. But what if I told you that even the colleague who frustrates you, who challenges you, who pushes your patience to the limit, is also shaping you into a stronger, wiser version of yourself? The comfortable teachers. Let's start with the easy part. We all know the colleagues who are a joy to work with. They're the ones who cover for you when you're swamped, who share tips without hesitation, who notice when you're having a rough day and check in with a kind word. It's natural to feel gratitude for them. They make the workplace lighter, smoother, more humane. They remind us that we are not alone. But here's the deeper truth. Stopping at gratitude for the easy people is like appreciating sunshine but cursing the rain. Both have something to teach us. The uncomfortable teachers. Think about that one colleague who always seems to get under your skin. Maybe they criticize too harshly, or they compete instead of collaborating, or they gossip behind your back. At first, it feels like they're only an obstacle. But if you look closer, they're also a mirror, reflecting the places inside you that still get triggered. I once worked with a man who questioned everything I did. At first, I thought, he just wants to make me look bad. But eventually, I realized he was teaching me patience, resilience, and the ability to defend my ideas with clarity instead of defensiveness. Without him, I would have stayed fragile. With him, I grew stronger. A story to illustrate. There's an old parable about a monk who was assigned to live with the most difficult person in the monastery. Everyone else avoided this man because he was argumentative, impatient, and sharp-tongued. The young monk complained to his teacher, "Why must I live with him?" The teacher replied, "Because he is your polishing stone. Without friction, how can you shine?" That's the heart of gratitude, realizing that both comfort and discomfort have value. Both are conditions that help us grow. The Buddhist perspective. In Buddhist teachings, gratitude is about recognizing causes and conditions, what we call nandayan. Nothing we achieve is done alone. Every interaction, pleasant or painful, contributes to our journey. The helpful colleague supports your progress. The difficult one forces you to develop endurance, understanding, maybe even compassion. Together, They create the full picture of your growth. When you see life through this lens, gratitude isn't selective. It becomes a way of seeing reality itself, a personal reflection. I'll admit, this shift wasn't easy for me. For years, I held grudges against people who made my work harder. I thought, if only they would change, I'd be happier. But over time, I realized something uncomfortable. Waiting for others to change is a trap. The real power is in changing how we respond. The day I stopped asking, why are they like this? And started asking, what is this teaching me? That was the day I found freedom. And strangely enough, when I responded with gratitude instead of resentment, those same colleagues slowly softened. Some even became allies. Gratitude doesn't just transform us, it can transform relationships. A question for you. So let me ask, can you think of one colleague, past or present, who made your life difficult, but in hindsight, helped you grow? What if, instead of carrying resentment, you carried gratitude? How would that change the way you walk into the office tomorrow? The ripple effect of gratitude. Gratitude has a ripple effect, just like humility. When you're grateful, even in tough situations, people notice. It creates an atmosphere of respect, patience, and openness. And here's something powerful. When you live with gratitude, you stop seeing enemies. You stop labeling people as good or bad. Instead, you see teachers everywhere. That mindset dissolves isolation and opens the heart. Imagine a workplace where everyone carried that kind of gratitude. Competition would soften into cooperation. Criticism would become feedback. Challenges would become opportunities. Practical takeaway. So how can we practice gratitude for colleagues, especially the difficult ones? Keep a gratitude journal at work. At the end of each day, write down one thing you're grateful for from a colleague, pleasant or not. Shift the question. Instead of asking, why are they like this? Ask, what are they teaching me? Express it out loud. Say thank you more often, not just to the people who make life easy, but also to those who challenge you. Remember, gratitude isn't passive. It's an active choice, a way of seeing life with fresh eyes. Closing and transition. When you cultivate gratitude, you stop fighting against life. You realize that every person who crosses your path is shaping you in some way. And when you see that, resentment fades. There are no enemies left, only teachers. But of course, gratitude alone doesn't erase the stress of a high-pressure workplace. The deadlines, the targets, the competition, those can still weigh heavily on the heart. So the question becomes, how do you keep your peace of mind in the middle of pressure? That's what we'll explore in the next part. For now, remember, every colleague is a teacher. The ones who lift you up and the ones who test your patience, they're all part of the classroom of life. Inner peace in a high-pressure workplace. Hook. Pressure doesn't destroy you. It's your reaction to it that causes suffering. Think about that for a moment. We live in a world that glorifies productivity. Deadlines, targets, endless emails. It feels like pressure is everywhere. And many of us believe, if only the pressure would disappear, I'd finally be at peace. But the truth is, pressure is not the enemy. The real test is how we meet it, how we breathe with it, and whether we let it crush us or shape us. The rushed mind versus the steady breath. Have you noticed how the people who are always rushing, always multitasking, often look the most stressed? Their shoulders tense, their brows furrow, their breath shallow. It's as if their whole body is carrying the weight of urgency. And then, you see someone else, same workload, same deadlines, but somehow they seem calm, collected. They take time to pause, to breathe, to respond instead of react. What's the difference? It's not luck. It's not that their job is easier. The difference is mindfulness. A simple story from the office. I once knew a woman named Claire who worked in a high-stakes corporate environment. Meetings back-to-back, constant client calls, bosses demanding more. Everyone around her was frazzled. But Claire had a secret. She practiced mindful breathing. Before every meeting, she would close her eyes for just a few seconds, take one slow, deep breath, and silently say to herself, I am here. That tiny practice didn't erase her workload, but it changed how she faced it. While others rushed, she responded with clarity. While others burned out, she sustained her energy. One day, a coworker asked, How do you stay so calm? She smiled and said, I can't control the storm, but I can learn to be the steady boat. The Buddhist teaching. This is exactly what Buddhist wisdom teaches us. Peace is not found by eliminating pressure, but by changing our relationship to it. Through mindfulness, especially mindful breathing, we train ourselves to anchor in the present moment. Each breath becomes a reminder. Right now, I am alive. Right now, I am safe. Right now, I can choose peace. It's so simple that many dismiss it. But think about it. What's the one thing you always carry with you, no matter where you are? Your breath. The Buddha called this anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing. And it's not just a meditation technique, it's a way of living, a way of keeping your heart steady even when the world feels unsteady. A modern reflection. Science now confirms what ancient wisdom has known for centuries. Studies show that mindful breathing lowers stress hormones, improves focus, and even strengthens the immune system. It's not philosophy, it's biology. But beyond the science, there's something more profound. When you learn to breathe with awareness, you discover that peace is always available. Not in the future, not after the deadlines are over, but right here, in this breath. A practical exercise for you. Let's try something right now. Take a slow inhale through your nose. Feel your lungs expand. Hold it for a moment. Now exhale gently, letting go. As you breathe out, silently say to yourself, I release. That's it. Just a few seconds. But did you notice? Even that tiny pause shifted something inside. That's the power of mindfulness. It doesn't demand hours. It starts with a single breath. So the next time pressure rises, instead of reacting in panic, try this. Stop, breathe, return. See how it changes the way you carry yourself. A question for reflection. What if pressure isn't here to break you, but to teach you? What if every deadline, every demand, every tough day at work is an invitation, not to collapse, but to rise into deeper awareness? The real question isn't, when will life stop being stressful? The real question is, how will I meet stress when it comes? The ripple of inner peace. Here's something beautiful. When you stay calm under pressure, it doesn't just benefit you. Others feel it too. Your steadiness becomes a safe harbor for those around you. Think of that one calm colleague who never seems shaken. Don't they make the whole team feel safer, more grounded? That's the ripple effect of peace. And you have that same capacity. By keeping your own mind steady, you create a pocket of stability that others can rest in. You're not just helping yourself, you're elevating the whole workplace. Closing and transition. So remember, pressure itself isn't the enemy. It's your reaction that makes the difference. With mindful breathing, you can carry peace into even the busiest day. And when your heart is at peace, your presence becomes a gift, an invisible but powerful form of leadership. But there's one more step. Peace within yourself is powerful. Yet to spread that peace outward, to truly transform your workplace, you need something deeper, the practice of loving kindness. And that's what we'll explore in the next part. For now, ask yourself, will I let pressure control me, or will I learn to breathe and find peace even in the storm? Cultivating loving kindness at work. Hook. Have you ever silently wished happiness for a colleague, even without them knowing it? It sounds simple, maybe even a little unusual. But this quiet practice of sending goodwill, of silently offering kindness, has the power to transform not just our own hearts, but the entire atmosphere of a workplace. The subtle power of loving kindness. Imagine walking into your office. The room feels heavy, everyone stressed, everyone buried in tasks. Now picture this. Instead of being pulled into the same anxious current, you pause for a moment. You look at your coworker typing furiously, and in your heart you whisper, "May you be at peace." You pass someone in the hallway and think, "May you be free from stress. May you be happy." They may never know you sent those silent blessings. But strangely, the energy begins to shift. Not because you said something out loud, but because your presence carries a softer, warmer vibration. A story of transformation. I once heard about a man named David who worked in a demanding sales company. Competition was fierce, tension constant. Instead of joining the race of egos, David started a very quiet practice. Every morning, as he walked through the office, he would silently bless each person he passed. He didn't announce it. He didn't try to be anyone's savior. He just made it a habit. May she feel joy. May he feel less burdened. May this office know peace. Months later, people began noticing. His team described him as someone you just feel calm around. Conflicts eased more quickly when he was present. Colleagues gravitated toward him, not because of his sales numbers, but because of his energy. That's the quiet revolution of loving kindness. You don't need to shout it. You don't need recognition. When you cultivate a heart that wishes well for others, people feel it. The Buddhist insight. In Buddhist teachings, this practice is called metta, loving kindness. It is said to be the foundation of all wholesome actions, the root from which compassion, generosity, and patience grow. Without loving kindness, our actions, even if they look good on the outside, can become mechanical or even self-serving. But with loving kindness, even the smallest gesture, a smile, a kind word, a silent blessing, becomes radiant. The Buddha compared loving kindness to the warmth of the sun. The sun doesn't choose who to shine on. It doesn't ask, "Do you deserve my light?" It simply shines. And in the same way, a heart of loving kindness doesn't discriminate. It blesses friend and stranger alike. A modern reflection. Now, some might think, but isn't this just being soft? In the workplace, don't you need toughness to survive? Here's the paradox. Loving kindness is not weakness. It's strength. Think of it this way. Anyone can react with irritation, with envy, with coldness. That's easy. But to meet tension with warmth? To meet harshness with gentleness? That requires courage. It requires an inner stability that is not shaken by the moods of others. And the science backs this up. Research shows that people who regularly practice loving-kindness meditation report lower stress, stronger resilience, and deeper satisfaction in their relationships. They're not avoiding challenges. They're facing them with a different kind of armor, an open heart. A practice for you. Let's try something together, right now. Close your eyes if you can. Take one deep breath. Now, bring to mind a colleague, anyone, maybe even someone difficult, and silently say in your heart, "May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease." Notice how it feels, not what they deserve, not what they've done, but just the simple act of wishing well. Even if they never know, you know. And in that moment, your heart softens, your stress lightens, and your presence becomes more peaceful. A question for reflection. What would happen if, instead of waiting for your workplace to change, you became the one who changes the atmosphere? What if, through tiny invisible acts of kindness, you could help turn a stressful office into a lighter, warmer place? We often underestimate how much our silent attitude shapes the room. But energy is contagious. And loving kindness is the kind of contagion the world actually needs. The ripple effect of a kind heart. I've seen it again and again. When one person practices kindness, not the loud, performative kind, but the genuine, quiet kind, it spreads. People relax. Walls of defensiveness begin to soften. Collaboration becomes easier. It's like lighting a candle in a dark room. The candle doesn't illuminate the night, but it brings enough light to see. And that light, when shared, grows. Your loving kindness might not change the entire company overnight, but it can change the way you show up. And when you change, the environment responds. Closing and transition. So remember this. Loving kindness is not a luxury. It's not just a nice to have. It is the foundation of every good action, the root of every true connection. And just like the sun, when your heart shines with kindness, you don't need to announce it. People will feel it. But here's the challenge. In many workplaces, kindness isn't always met with kindness. Sometimes, instead of gratitude, you face envy. Instead of harmony, you face jealousy. How do you protect your heart in the face of jealousy? How do you keep your light alive when others try to dim it? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. For now, I leave you with this question. Will you be the one who silently blesses others, or will you wait for someone else to light the candle? Dissolving jealousy through rejoicing. Hook. Instead of feeling jealous, what if we learned to genuinely celebrate the success of others? It sounds simple, but in practice, it can feel almost impossible. Because the workplace is one of the ripest grounds for jealousy. Someone else gets the promotion. Someone else gets praised in the meeting. Someone else seems to be moving ahead while you feel stuck. And suddenly, that quiet sting of comparison arises. The hidden cost of jealousy. Here's the thing. Jealousy doesn't hurt the person you envy, it hurts you. Think about it. The colleague you're jealous of? They're probably busy living their life, maybe even unaware of your feelings. Meanwhile, you carry this heavy stone in your chest. Every time you see them, your mood drops. Every time they succeed, your joy shrinks. It's like drinking poison and hoping the other person suffers. But in reality, it's you who grows bitter. A story of two colleagues. Let me share a story. There were two colleagues, Sarah and Lisa. Both were hardworking, both were talented. One day, Lisa got promoted. Sarah congratulated her out loud, but inside, she was burning with jealousy. Weeks passed. Every time Lisa spoke in meetings, Sarah felt irritated. Every time Lisa got credit, Sarah's mind whispered, "Why not me?" Her days grew heavier, her work less joyful. Meanwhile, Lisa simply kept doing her job. Now imagine if Sarah had taken a different route. Instead of feeding her jealousy, what if she had genuinely celebrated Lisa's success? She would have freed herself from the weight of resentment. And who knows, her supportive energy might have even opened new doors for her own growth. That's the magic of rejoicing. The Buddhist insight, rejoicing in merit. In Buddhist teachings, this practice is called mudita, sympathetic joy, or rejoicing in the happiness and success of others. It's one of the four immeasurables, qualities of the awakened heart. And here's the beauty. When you rejoice in someone else's good fortune, it becomes your good fortune too. Their success plants joy not just for them, but for you as well. The texts even say, by rejoicing in another's merit, you share in the blessings without having lifted a finger. It's like cheering for a marathon runner. You didn't run the miles, but you still feel a rush of victory when they cross the finish line. A modern reflection. Now, let's be honest. In today's competitive workplaces, rejoicing doesn't come naturally. We are taught from childhood to measure ourselves against others. Better grades, higher salaries, bigger houses. So of course, when someone else wins, we feel like we lose. But that's a false equation. Life is not a zero-sum game. Another person's light doesn't dim your own. If anything, their success shows what's possible. It can inspire, expand, and even clear the path for you. So the question is, will you let someone else's success shrink your joy, or expand it? An exercise in rejoicing. Here's a practice you can try. The next time a colleague succeeds, maybe they're praised in a meeting, maybe they close a deal, maybe they simply do a task well, pause for a moment. Instead of letting envy rise, silently say to yourself, I'm happy for you. May your success grow. May your work bring more good into the world. You don't even need to say it out loud. Just let it echo inside. Notice how it feels in your body. Instead of tightness, there's spaciousness. Instead of contraction, there's expansion. Why rejoicing frees you? Here's why this matters. When you learn to rejoice, you free yourself. You stop being controlled by comparison. You stop wasting energy on resentment. And your heart becomes lighter, more open, more generous. In fact, psychologists today call this expanding mindset. When you believe there's enough success to go around, you feel more abundant. And when you feel abundant, you're more creative, more collaborative, and ironically, you attract more success yourself. It's like the difference between standing in a locked room and standing in an open field. Jealousy closes the walls around you. Rejoicing opens the horizon. A question for you. So, let me ask you. The next time a colleague shines, what will you choose? To let jealousy shrink your world? Or to rejoice and let your heart expand? Because that choice doesn't just affect your mood. It shapes the way you show up, the way people see you, and the kind of energy you bring into every room. Closing and transition. When you learn to rejoice, your heart feels wider. You stop seeing life as a competition. You start seeing it as a shared journey. And in the workplace, that shift is powerful. Suddenly, no one is your enemy. Everyone's growth becomes part of your joy. In Buddhist terms, this is called rejoicing in merit, a practice that not only frees you from envy, but also multiplies your own blessings. And here's the deeper truth. All these practices, working with a pure heart, staying humble, cultivating gratitude, keeping calm under pressure, radiating loving kindness, and now rejoicing, ultimately point toward one thing: acting with a heart of awakening. Acting with what Buddhism calls bodhicitta, the awakened intention to bring goodness to yourself and to others. That will be the final piece of this series. Because when you work with a bodhisattva heart, even the ordinary workplace becomes a field of merit. So stay with me, because in the next and final part, we'll explore how all of this comes together in one ultimate intention: working with the awakened heart. For now, I'll leave you with this. Will you let jealousy chain your heart, or will you free yourself by rejoicing in the light of others? Working with a bodhisattva heart. Hook. What if every small task at work was no longer just a duty, but an act of service? If you saw each moment as a chance to serve others, you've already touched the bodhisattva heart. A new way to see work. Most of us see our jobs through a narrow lens. Deadlines, paychecks, promotions, or simply getting through the day. But what if the purpose of your work was bigger than that? What if your true measure of success wasn't just how much you earned or how much recognition you got, but how much happiness your work created for others? That's what it means to work with the bodhisattva, the awakened heart, the mind of compassion. In Buddhist wisdom, this is called the bodhisattva intention, doing not for me, but for we. A story from the workplace. Let me share an example. Imagine two employees in the same company, both given the same task, organizing a big event. The first one thinks, just another job. I'll get it done so I can clock out. They finish the work, but it feels heavy, draining. The second one thinks differently. This event is going to bring people together. Maybe it will inspire someone. Maybe it will brighten their day. Let me give my best. Same task, same hours, but the second person feels light, joyful, even energized, because they see their work as an offering, not a burden. That shift in perspective is the difference between ordinary effort and the bodhisattva heart. Why this matters? Now, you might ask, but why should I work for others? Isn't it enough just to do my job? Here's the truth. When you only work for yourself, joy is limited. You get the paycheck, maybe some recognition, but it fades quickly. The happiness is small and temporary. But when you expand your motivation, when you say, I'm doing this for the good of others too, the joy becomes endless. Even small actions, like answering an email kindly, helping a colleague solve a problem, or simply bringing a calm presence into a tense meeting, become sources of deep satisfaction. Because now, your heart isn't bound by what's in it for me. It's flowing outward. And that outward flow is what creates freedom. The teaching, bodhisattva. In Buddhist teaching, bodhisattva is called the root of both merit and wisdom. Why? Because every act done with this intention plants seeds of compassion and clarity. It's like watering the soil of your own mind while also nourishing the garden of others. Without bodhisattva, even great accomplishments can feel empty. With bodhisattva, even the smallest effort shines with meaning. Think of it this way. A candle flame is small, but when it lights another candle, its brightness doesn't lessen, it multiplies. That's the nature of the bodhisattva heart. A modern reflection. Now, let's bring this into modern workplaces. In a culture obsessed with individual achievement, working with a bodhisattva heart is radical. It's like swimming upstream. But it's also the medicine we need. Because stress, burnout, and competition are symptoms of a me-first mindset. When you shift to service first, everything changes. Meetings aren't just obligations, they're chances to listen deeply. Deadlines aren't just pressure, they're chances to show reliability. Even conflicts aren't just frustrations, they're chances to practice patience and compassion. It doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you approach every challenge with the question, how can I bring more benefit, more kindness, more understanding into this situation? An exercise in daily work. Here's something you can try tomorrow at work. Before starting your day, pause for a moment. Take a breath. Then silently say to yourself, may whatever I do today bring benefit. May my actions reduce suffering and increase happiness for others. It takes only 10 seconds, but it changes your orientation. Suddenly, sending that report isn't just a task, it's part of supporting a team. Serving that customer isn't just a job, it's lifting someone's burden, even if only a little. Over time, this intention transforms your entire relationship with work. Why joy expands with service. Here's the paradox. When you work only for yourself, you often feel empty. But when you work for others, you often feel full. Why? Because the heart is built to give. Science even backs this up. Studies show that people who serve others, even in small ways, report greater happiness, resilience, and even longer lifespans. So in a way, working with a bodhisattva heart isn't just noble, it's practical. It keeps you joyful, connected, and energized in a world where so many people feel isolated and drained. A question for you. So let me ask you, what would change in your work if you stopped asking, what do I get? and started asking, "What can I give?" Would the stress feel lighter? Would your relationships improve? Would you rediscover joy even in the small, ordinary tasks? That's the invitation of the Bodhisattva heart. Closing and transition. When you work with a Bodhisattva heart, the workplace itself becomes a kind of temple, not because the tasks change, but because you change. Every email, every meeting, every conversation becomes part of your practice. The office becomes a dojo for compassion, a training ground for wisdom. And here's the beautiful part. This doesn't just stay at work. Because once your heart opens in this way, it naturally flows into every corner of your life. Which brings us to the next step, how to carry this Bodhisattva heart back home, into your family, your closest relationships, your everyday life. That will be the next chapter in our journey. But for now, remember this. Every task, no matter how small, can be a sacred offering, if you do it with the Bodhisattva heart.